I got pregnant in February last year, back when everything was still normal. I bled a lot throughout my pregnancy, and the first time happened when the world was still normal. My husband was able to come into the hospital with me and hold my hand and assure me everything would be okay. But by the time I was 8 weeks pregnant and was going in to check that the baby had a heartbeat, the restrictions had come into place. Everything thankfully was okay with her, but was not okay with me, where for the rest of the pregnancy I had to attend every scan alone, every appointment alone, every emergency room dash alone, and for the 22 out of 24 hours a day after I gave birth was alone in the hospital with this baby who never stopped crying, and I was absolutely terrified and traumatised. At one point I was readmitted to hospital with an infection, and I was absolutely determined that I would breastfeed, and it was impossible. I was alone, as I said, 22 out of 24 hours a day. At one point I was feeding her and she pulled an IV drip out of my arm. I had to send her home. So them first precious few weeks where I was supposed to be bonding with my baby and breastfeeding, I was alone in hospital and she was at home with her dad. It took me absolutely months for my anxiety to recover, even longer for my confidence to recover, and I never managed to resurrect that breastfeeding relationship with her. So I'm looking around here today, surrounded by a lot of politicians, which we don't always get at these protests, wondering how, as women, we always end up here. You know, we're always outside the door, we're always marching for our rights, or sometimes just some basic humane treatment. And sharing our personal stories, our very painful personal stories, for some sort of political change. So, look, while we have politicians in government who have just recently been in government and others who want to be in government here, I think maybe we should outline what we are actually marching for here today. So, women's healthcare is never, ever a priority in Ireland. We fought for repeal, we marched in the wake of the cervical check scandal, we are still fighting for ownership of our National Maternity Hospital, for safety zone legislation so women and pregnant people aren't harassed as they attend maternity services. We're still waiting for all 19 of our maternity hospitals to provide abortion services. The restrictions in our maternity hospitals can only be viewed as a continuum of decades of underfunding by successive governments in our maternity services and the failure to fully implement and fully finance our national maternity strategy. So, at the National Women's Council, we have fought for a long time for a national maternity strategy. It was developed partially in response to horrendous tragedies in our maternity services, and it was meant to develop safe, consistent and well-resourced care in all 19 maternity units across our country. Without proper funding and without the opening of a publicly owned and publicly controlled national maternity hospital, commitments to develop women-centred maternity care will not be achieved. There's a long history in this country of treating women as second-class citizens, of neglecting women's health care and of ignoring women's pain. The crowds here today show that we will not stand for this anymore. My sister is in this crowd here today. She's about to give birth exactly a year after me with fairly similar restrictions. This cannot continue. So what do we want? End these cruel maternity restrictions now. Ensure our new National Maternity Hospital is public and secular. Legislate for safety zones outside healthcare facilities so women and pregnant people can access maternity services, including abortion, without harassment and intimidation. And finally, listen to women. Put our voices and our experiences at the centre of your policies, because we know what is best for us. Thanks.
Follow that, Sarah, but we're going to try. We have a number of messages of solidarity that we're going to read through quickly, and then people may see here on the ground we have a 20-foot scroll full of hundreds of stories that we're going to present to the Oireachtas Women's Caucus. So we'll ask people to bear with us while we organise that for a photo, and we'll need everybody involved in that. So Liz and Sandy, who are part of the Better Maternity Care campaign and huge resource and support for us, please give them a massive cheer, everyone.